Hello everyone, Art Burns here, wishing you well today. So last night, as I do every Sunday night, I gave a presentation called How to Tame Stress and Eliminate Reactivity in less than 8 weeks. And I have to tell you, I just love giving this presentation. It is so fun for me. It's not easy. It's a lot of talking. It goes on for over an hour, and it's not the easiest thing that I do all week, but it's really one of the most enjoyable things. And so I want to welcome all the people who were in attendance last night, and all of you who missed it last night too, who are signed up. Today you're receiving this email with this video link to it, and this is the first time that you're receiving it. But from now on, every single Monday through Friday, you'll receive a new email with a new link to a video that I post here on YouTube that kind of talks about various subjects of mindfulness and stress reduction, about emotional intelligence, about compassion exercises, self-compassion, a lot of gratitude exercises, a lot of different concepts which can help us to reduce the stress in our lives and help us to live more balanced and more fulfilling lives, and really connect to other people in our lives and connect to ourselves, and really just live a happier life, and so it's my pleasure to share this information with you every day, and I welcome you all. And for all of those who are not receiving this for the first time, who have been receiving these emails for time and time again over the course of the months, the last year even, I want to say thank you, and I want to tell you that I really enjoy the fact that so many people out there really seem to really enjoy these videos. I love the comments that I get back from some of you, and so I just want you to know that I appreciate you. All right. And so last night in the presentation, and most of you who do receive these webinars, these videos rather, you signed up for the webinar at some point, whether you got to attend it or not. And if you would ever like to attend it, either again or for the first time, please just let me know. I'll send you the link. You don't have to go through the whole registration process and all that. I'll be happy to just send you the Zoom link so you can join. It's every Sunday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern time. And so you're more than welcome to join each week if you want to. It's pretty much the same presentation. I tweak it here and there, but pretty much it's the same subject and content. But you're more than welcome to join. I would love to see you in the question and answer period. But anyway, during this presentation, one of the things that I mentioned quite a few times that I want to go a little bit deeper on today in this video, one of the things that I mentioned quite a bit is how the practices of mindfulness, right, which we can use to reduce the stress in our bodies, right, by paying attention to what's happening as it's happening, right. A lot of times the stress comes from the thoughts of what's gonna happen, what's the result, the consequence of what's the situation that we're in, or what has happened. How did I get to this point? What are the mistakes that I made to get me to this uncomfortable position? A lot of times when we're thinking about those things, that's where the stress is coming from, right? And so one of the things I talk about in the webinar is how, as we practice mindfulness, which is paying attention to what's happening as it's happening, right, and doing so without judgment, what happens is this becomes a habit, right? And this is really crucial to understand, right? That it does become automatic, right? It becomes a natural inclination of the mind, right? Now, this concept is based on the quality of the mind that is now known to neuroscientists and neuroanatomists as neuroplasticity. Okay, now I say it's now known to neuroscientists and neuroanatomists because up until about 1995, neuroplasticity was not a concept that people really bought into in the scientific community. In fact, up until that point, it was very much believed that by the time you were about 25 years old or so, your brain was formed, right? And the different synapses that your brain had, and the different, when some certain stimulus happened, the way that your brain processed it and the way that you kind of thought through things was set, right? It was not changeable. In addition to that, it was very much believed that once you lost brain cells, they never came back, right? But now, since 1995, we know a lot better that this is not the case, right? We know neuroscientists and neuroanatomists have known since then that in fact your brain is plastic. It is constantly moldable, and it's molded by the way that you kind of process your thoughts, right? And so no, we're all engaged in neuroplasticity all the time, right, throughout our whole lives, because as we do things on a habitual nature, we kind of, when one thing happens, we do this thing. When this other thing happens, we do that thing. And as we do this, we form these sort of neural networks in our minds, in our brains, that kind of, make certain thoughts, very likely, right? Become, sort of, again, the natural inclination of the mind, right? Now, there's a great study that was done that shows the effects of neuroplasticity, because remember, it's on an anatomical level that this happens, right? It's the neurons of the brain, right, are, first of all, it's like the most amazing complex thing that happens, but the neurons of the brains, right, they connect to one another, and each time they connect, that's called a synapse, right? And the synapse are basically the way that your brain thinks, right? Like when as I said, when something happens, a certain neural network, a certain series of these synapses engages, and that's where you process things in a similar way each time, right? So when this thing happens, this is the way you react. When that thing happens, that is the way you react. This is how it kind of works, right? And that's how things become automatic and habit-driven, which we are all very habit-driven as human beings. But anyway, back to this study. So there was a study done in London, right, of taxi cab drivers. Now, in order to get a license to drive a taxi cab in London, okay, it is an infamously hard test that you have to take. I guess in London, I've read that there are over 25,000 streets in the city of London, right? And in order to get your license to drive a taxi, right? Now, of course, the streets in London, if you've ever been there, I mean, they're, some are one way, some are two way. There's little windy little streets. Like, that's true of all European cities. I mean, they're very, very old. And so it's not just 25,000 streets that just like set up in a grid that, 1 through 25,000. It's easy to navigate. No, it's like spaghetti, right? Like trying to, drive through the city of London, or trying to picture a map of the city of London, right? And so what people have to do in order to get their taxi license, right, is they have to sit down for an oral test, right, where the proctor of the test will give them a starting address and a destination address. And I don't know exactly how many of these questions they have to answer, but it's quite a few. And they have to give turn by turn instructions on how they would get from point A to point B. Right now, of course, they do not have access to a map. They do not have their phone with GPS. They don't have anything to rely on except their memory. Right now, one of the things I talk about in the webinar last night is the hippocampus. Right, the hippocampus is the part of our brain that is responsible for generating new memories and also for recalling old memories. Right, your memories themselves are stored in those neurons and those synapses and stuff. Right, but the way that you recall those memories, right, like when you look at something, you have to say, okay, I need to remember this thing. That's your hippocampus looking through the different connections in your brain to find, okay, that's the one, there it is, here's your memory, right? So that's the way it works. Now, the people who take this test to become taxi drivers in London, right, it is known that they study for up to 4 years to pass this test, right? This is not an easy test by any stretch of the imagination, right? I mean, London's a big tourist town, so they really want the taxi cabs to know how they're getting around, otherwise it's going to be chaos with tourists and everything else. So again, 4 years they study, right? And they're just working on their memory. They're memorizing every, permutation of this literally a map that looks like spaghetti spilled on a page, and trying to, and committing to memory all the different connections of all these different streets, and which ones are one way, which ones are two way, which ones are roundabouts, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so what they do is they exercise their memory. Right, so they did this study of London taxi drivers, right? They kind of controlled for the gender and age and demographic. And so they took two groups, right? And they measured the hippocampi in these two groups, right? And what they found was that the people who had passed this test for the taxi driving, right, their hippocampi were bigger. They literally were increased in size and volume, right? And also in power, of course, right? Because this is what they did. They worked on it, right? So this is a part of the brain, right, that is very integral to our ability to function, right? And these people are able to increase the size of this part of the brain, right? So now I know that neuroplasticity also, I know I mentioned that your neuroplasticity also, talks about the synapses as well, but you're even talking about a literal, size differentiation, right? Now there's another part of your brain called the insula, which is responsible for knowing when your attention, knowing where your attention is, right? So knowing that you're either paying attention to what you're doing right now, right here, or your attention is somewhere else while you're doing something. So when you're washing dishes, for instance, and you're thinking about some problem at work, right? Your insula is the thing that knows when that's happened, right? And as you pay attention to it, right, and every time your mind wanders off, and this is what we do in meditation, when our mind wanders, we bring it back. Every time you realize your mind has wandered and you bring it back, you're exercising that insula, and you're creating a stronger, more efficient level of being able to hold your attention and to keep it in the present moment, right? And so that's why I say that as we do these practices, it becomes automatic. It becomes something that is the natural inclination of the mind, okay? And this is very, very important to understand, because a lot of times when people, when I tell them about the practices and the functions of mindfulness, people are like, well, oh man, it sounds like a lot of work. Like I'm gonna have to do that for the rest of my life. Like I don't know if I want to live that way, But the thing is, like again, the way habits form is based on these synapses that happen in your brain, right? And as we over and over and over again, focus on a specific action of the brain, these synapses change, right? And they do so very, very quickly. Okay, you're talking about, it's very well accepted in the scientific community that between 8 and 12 weeks at the max, or it's even less than that, but 8 to 12 weeks is certainly the wide window, that's how long it takes to form a habit. In fact, there's a lot of scientists and experts who tell you that even after 30 days, you have formed enough of this, sort of neuroplastic way of kind of changing things that it's inevitable for you to form a habit. So literally just doing a practice every day for 30 days alone is enough to get you to the point of kind of no return, right? So if you keep doing it for about 8 weeks, that's all you're talking about, right? 8 to 12 weeks of doing these practices. The beautiful thing about it, though, is that after that point, the practices feel so good. So they don't become work anymore. It feels like, okay, I can just do this, right? So like it feels good to be paying attention to washing the dishes. It feels good to pay attention to, making your bed sheets, to walking around. It feels good to be present because, as I say in this, in the webinar, there's been studies, many studies that have shown that people are happier when they are present. It's not that they're present because they're happier. They are happier because they are present. And so once your body and your mind and your brain realize that you feel better being present, that's where it becomes completely effortless and easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right. And so I just wanted to share that and go a little bit further on how this all works. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email or drop a comment below and let me know what your question is. I'd be more than happy to spend some time answering the question and certainly getting into a conversation with you. Okay. And if you ever need help to try to form some of these habits in your life and get these really established in your life, please let me know that too. I would love to get into a conversation about that with you and see how I can help you. All right, thanks for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow, and tomorrow we're going to talk about gratitude, which is a really, really beneficial thing for our well-being physically, mentally, and emotionally, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. I wish you well.